righty. Hey, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you guys are in the world. And I would like to hear where you are in the world. So give us a shout out if you would. That's always fun to see you guys and where you're tuning in from. We have a really important show today. We're a really important show. So we're going to get to it in a minute. First of all, just, tell us where you are. And you guys, I definitely would like to hear from you in the chat as we go through this today. So without further ado, I'm going to just introduce the show. I'm Marc Silber. I am a photographer, author, and educator here in Carmel, California. And our sponsor is Bay Photo Lab. We love these guys. They will help you make prints out of anything and into anything. So here's some of their specials. 30% off on press printed products. These are really high quality. Great way to print cards. You can see all the different variations they've got. 30% off is a good deal, you guys. So if you want to make some cards, if you have other press printed stuff, you can look at their catalog here and you'll get 30% off. And 20% off on tabletop prints. Those are, you can see them on stands. That's pretty cool. Those are also fun. And then wood products. You can make a box with photos on it. You can make a wood print. There's all sorts of different things you can do with these different products. Or if you want to just get any kind of traditional print, 25% off on your first order. So after the show, head on over and get something from those guys because, listen, it's really important to get your work in print, and Bay Photo Lab will help you do that. So we have some people here. Jeff, hello. Gear, Norway, wow. Dave from North Carolina and GM from Niagara Falls. There you are. Okay, you guys, so we're going to talk about something quite important. I don't know if you saw my Instagram post. I've been thinking about this a lot lately because of what's going on in the world. And let's dive in here. Not to that. There we go. So I want you guys to think about this. It's really important. You've heard us kind of talk around this point, but maybe not as directly. With Dan Milner, for instance, what is the mission of your photography? You got to have something that wakes you up in the morning, or you wake up in the morning and you go, what am I here to do? Why am I pointing my camera at the world? What am I doing with this? And that comes from your mission. Your camera is a tool, and it's a tool for creativity, but it's really a tool for communication. And it can be used as a tool to help people. Now, help is defined in the Oxford Dictionary as the action of helping someone do something or assistance. And the second one's even better. Improve a situation or a problem. Be of benefit to. Improve a situation or a problem. Now, we have a few problems in the world today, don't we? And we can use our tools of creativity, and this isn't just photography. There's a lot of artists who use their creative talents to change the world. I mean, you can think of some notable ones, and we're going to certainly look at them in a minute. Pablo Picasso is the one that comes to mind here. Using our art to create change is what this show is all about. Create change. And we're doing this by introducing this hashtag. Nobody else has used it yet. ProjectCreatePeace. There's two posts in that I'm aware of, and they're both related to our show. And I would like you guys to use this when you post your stuff on Instagram or anywhere you put it. Use this hashtag. Now, peace is the other side of war. We're not going to just focus on peace, because sometimes you have to tell the story of what you're trying to help people overcome. I mean, that is the role of us as photographers. We go out and we tell stories with our cameras. And we're going to see some examples from you guys as we get into that part of the show. But I want you to think about This first example of Pablo Picasso, 1937. Now, he was from Spain. He had moved to France, to Paris, and he was horrified by what was happening in 1937. Here's some text on it. He was outraged by the reports of the Germans bombing civilians during the Spanish Civil War. Does that sound familiar? He painted this called Guernica. I'm probably mispronouncing that, in response to the destruction of the town by that name. Civilians being bombed. Okay, he used his art to spread the message, and it's become a representation of every city that has been bombed since then. By the way, I forgot to tell you guys, Jared, you got to always remind me of this, or else I cruise right by it. Subscribe and enable the bell so you don't miss anything. And it also helps if you guys do, like what we're talking about. So going back to this is a really important painting. And he used his ability as an artist. He had transitioned from several different art genres by this time. He went through his very realistic realism to cubism to what we can only really call his own genre, which is Pablo Picasso. But this is a really moving painting of how he depicted this horror. And it really did move people around the world, and it still does. 1937 to today, in the big scheme of things, that's not very long ago. And it certainly is very applicable in today's world. So he used that, and it's been used by many other people, and you guys can do the same thing. Here's an example of a Ukrainian conductor. Jared found this. Herman Makarenko. I know I'm messing up your name, and I'm very sorry. By the way, all these links that we're going over will be in a blog post, so you guys can refer to them later. Jared, why don't you tell them you found this? What's the story here?
Yeah, so this gentleman he belongs to a UN organization, Artists for Peace. They have a whole bunch of different artists that promote different things, and in this case, this is a Ukrainian conductor, and he took, this was March 9th, and Maidan Square, which is kind of the main plaza of Kiev, the capital, he held a concert there. Normally he has about like 60 to 80 people, I believe. He was able to round up about 20 people, and they held a concert during the day. In the previous night they'd been shelled and stuff, and so he held a concert, sort of a way to give relief to the people that were there and to stand in solidarity.
That's another example of how you can use your art. It's not just about the storytelling, but it's also giving some relief. Can you imagine? Just think about that. These people the night before had been shelled, and here they are probably risking their lives. I mean, I don't know where the fighting is going on in relationship to them, but here he is holding a fairly lively concert. You guys will see that. We'll put it in the blog post. Pretty powerful stuff, because we're now he's using his art to help these people. Remember that definition of help that I gave you. It's giving some assistance to overcome a problem or a situation, and that is certainly a big situation there. One of the photographers I interviewed in 2009, a long time ago, Teru Kuwayama. Now, Teru, I'm showing some stuff, and we'll also give you guys the link to this. This is part of another big article. But he said, a world history and a cautionary tale are written here in the fragments of past superpowers and in the faces of the descendants of history's great empires. He went and photographed through, he was in Mongolia, he was in Afghanistan, and these are just pictures that he captured. Now, something interesting about Teru is that he photographs with toy cameras because he doesn't want to take expensive equipment behind the lines. I mean, you can imagine if something happened to one of those, his gear, either it could be stolen from him or broken or whatever. And all these are filmed with film cameras, Helga's and different toy cameras that he used. Really amazing photographs, telling the story. And he obviously had a mission here. His mission was to show this area that had, generation after generation, had gone through war. And, he's picturing it here so people can see it. I mean, that is one of our kind of our outlets as humans, is if we can see what's going on, we know at least what's happening. Maybe we can do something about it. And if nothing more, just being informed certainly helps. So these are very powerful images. Look at the length of that film. This is all film strip. So this is 2 1/4 square. This is probably 2 1/4 by, I don't know, it's an unusual frame, 6 or something. Unusual, very unusual frame. And this is one of my favorites right here. This was, filmed in probably 2007 or 8, but this could be from 100 years ago. So here's an example which you guys can look up. Teru will give you some links, and I do have that interview that I did with him that's quite interesting, because I don't know anybody else who's professionally going out and shooting with toy cameras. Now, I want you to think about ways that you can carry out this mission, because I'm imagining one of the first thoughts you might have, and if you're watching this video, you might have, well, I don't live in a war-torn area. I live in Sacramento, California. How do I go shoot anything that has relevance to this? Well, think about it. Just start by doing a little bit of research, first of all. How could you tell your stories? And you'll see some examples from our own AYP Club members in a minute. But how could you tell your stories about war or peace? Could you talk to friends or family in those areas? Maybe you have some family in the Ukraine, war right now that you could get some photographs from them. Maybe you could look into your family's past. Amy Douglas, who's been part of our community, looked into old negatives and found old negatives from her family and started making prints of them. You could do the same thing. So maybe you have some old prints or negatives from war days, and you could create a story around them. And then really it comes down to researching and getting ideas and asking people. The part of storytelling is you got to listen, you got to observe before you start telling anybody else anything. And this is true as photographers. We have to watch and listen and gather information. And these 5 points, which again we'll put in the blog post, you can start there. But what we're going to do next is we're going to take a look at our own examples from our own AYP community, AYP Club. And these were posted some time ago, but Jared gathered them together, and I'm going to switch over to you, Jared. Okay, tell us who this is.
All right, these are photos from Christopher Scott Carpenter, good friend. We've critiqued a lot of his photos. We critiqued a few photos from this, and this was in New York City at some protests early on in the war. So I'm just kind of going to go through some of these photos.
Yeah, we're not really... Stop here, because you got to read that sign. I had never seen this before, and I had to... it's... These people are not laughing, and it's very serious, but there is a little levity here that, introduces itself into this. We're not really critiquing these photographs. We're just showing them as examples of getting in there and telling that story. This last one, go back to that last one with the shadow. That's really a cool image. It's got a lot of things going on in it. Mm-hmm. It's the shadows make it really powerful, and the grid lines, and then the guy up there walking through the frame. Yeah, that's a very
Yeah.
cool,
It's
powerful.
funny because normally you wouldn't want shadows on the thing that you're doing, but it has a
You
new
know,
meaning.
and it tells a whole story in one frame. You know, New York City loves Ukraine. It's just this one image tells a lot of what's going on.
Hmm.
Good work, Scott. And I'm going to encourage him and everybody else to start using that hashtag when you post these things. And if you would tag me, then I can see these. But we'll pull them up on the on Instagram. You can definitely populate that hashtag. Go back to that last one. I remember going over. Yes, these are powerful, aren't they?
Yeah.
We talked about this one as a critique. I love the framing of that. I'd like to hear your guys' comments as we're looking through these.
That's the last one.
Yeah. So Jeff said these are powerful, and they are. Give me your feedback, and I'd especially like to know if you guys have ideas in your own catalog of photography. Maybe you've already captured some photographs that you could start telling this story. Here's my idea. I'm going to just give you this idea. What if we could use where we stand as artists and photographers to help end these wars? You may say, Mark, that's pretty far-fetched. How are you going to turn away the Russian tanks? Well, it's been done. I could tell you story after story. Gandhi freed his whole nation from violence with a campaign. It started with a few people. There's an excellent movie. If you've never seen it, you've got to see it. It's called Gandhi. And Ben Kingsley plays Gandhi. It's just unbelievable as a performance. And you hear and see the story of how he was able to free his entire nation from the yoke of the British Empire. It's not unlike what we're seeing happening in the Ukraine, I hate to say. It's a similar kind of thing of another nation coming and invading a sovereign state and taking it over. And it shows you watch this film, you see the entire transition of them being completely in their own country, being considered third or fourth class citizens, literally, with no freedom. And just by his strong will and his undeniable purpose, he was able to free his nation in a fairly short period of time. Okay, who else have we got here?
We've got some photos here. Let me open these up. Oh,
JM asked this question: Are hashtags effective to use on Facebook? I think so, because try it. When you click on one, you'll see it does bring up other hashtag photographs.
I think the power is if you're using one that a lot of other people are using too.
Yeah.
So as a group, if we're using this, then it can help.
I want to make a game out of seeing how quickly we can populate this hashtag, you guys. Let's see how quickly we can make this and noticeable as a movement. Okay, tell us who we're looking at here.
All right, this is Jeremy Lindenfeld, another AYP club member, and he did a lot. If you were in AYP club in 2020, you know that he covered a lot of the protests. He's a photojournalist student, and so these are some of his that he took during the protests.
Go back to that last one again, just a sec. Yeah. Really like that one. What's great is the formation of it. You just see the people kind of disappearing into the shallow depth of field, but you can see the people in the foreground, the fist raised, the woman tying her bandana on. There's a lot going on here that's visually very interesting.
And the fact of getting this while this group is walking, because
they're walking,
he had to be
him.
walking at the same time
backwards.
So I don't know how he got this.
Yeah, he had to be walking backwards. Yeah, the one that gets me is the woman looking right at him there in the bandana.
Yeah,
she's looking at him.
Just see her eyes.
Yeah,
it's really powerful. And I believe these were taken in a lot of different locations, so I don't think these were any one specific city.
Wow, that one's really amazing.
Yeah, I believe we critiqued this one, if I remember.
I do remember it. Yeah, it's just So all these can be hashtagged. We're going to definitely make this known in the AYP Club. We do have a hashtag AYP Club, by the way, which you should always use whenever you're posting stuff. Just no matter what kind of photograph it is. So make sure because we have quite a few in that hashtag. So make sure you use.
All right. And then we've got a couple photos from, if you're early, long-time fans, you'll recognize some of these photos as well. Magnus and Nemi Persson are father-daughter, fantastic duo. And these are some pictures that Magnus took of in Bangkok when there was a coup d'etat happening.
Magnus is the dad, and his daughter Nemi, at that time when we were seeing a lot of her work, was like 15 or 16. Now look at this. Wow, talk about some, what we say in Spanish, huevos.
Yeah.
Getting right in there. Like, that's pretty amazing. Notice he has a helmet on it, strapped onto the back of his backpack.
This was a photographer partner, I believe they were working with on that project. And then here were some that Nemi took at a demonstration in France.
Keeping in mind, I believe she was
very young at the time when she did these.
Right close and personal. I believe we talked about her. This is not a telephoto lens. These are like 50 or 35 millimeter lens that she's shooting with.
Mm-hmm. And then, having something that's not quite a protest, these are some photos that Magnus took of refugees coming in from Myanmar.
Yeah.
And he took a couple of pictures of some children.
Now keep in mind too, you guys, that when you post something, it's not just the photograph, it's your caption and it's what you write about as well. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed, I've been doing some research on Instagram, many photographers who get a lot of traction put a lot of work into their descriptions. They don't just say, this is a child, a refugee. I mean, they tell as much of the story about it as they can, because we learn things through visual images, obviously, but that doesn't tell the whole story. We don't know. I wouldn't know that she was a refugee just by looking at this. Mm-hmm. So you have to fill people in, and they will read your story. They do read your story. So this is a tip from Chris Burkhart, by the way, who has like probably about 5 million followers now, and he was saying that you really want to make sure you do tell your story in your description and your caption, because it draws people in and it gives them a way of really understanding what your image is all about. Okay, let's see who.
I think the final thing that we were going to talk about was actually a book that somebody has made. Tim. So if you want to talk about this a little bit, since.
So, yes, Tim put this book together in aftermath of the shootings that occurred in Boulder, Colorado. And it starts off with texts from people that he knew, which I thought was a really interesting way. You can tell your story in a lot of different ways. Go back to those texts for a second. And then he writes about it, but very, very profound way of beginning his story with screenshots of his texts. And then he has a little description here, a little bit of text. Wasn't there some text opening the story where I saw it fly by there? There it is. Okay. So he tells the story and kind of what it's all about. And then we go through and look at his images. And this is the aftermath. So it's what, how people responded in Boulder to this horrific incident. And then this was part two is really powerful. It's the 100 yards. Like, this is the range of the gun that was being used, was Actually greater than, I think it says it in there somewhere.
In fact, it had an effective range
Effective
of
range of
100
yards. That's why he called this 100 yards. So he was photographing what was within range of the shooter. People. You know, this is obviously an act of violence, and he was able to counteract that. Remember that creativity is the antidote for destruction and violence. So rather than just absorbing, this is another really important thing. Is that it, Jared, as far as...
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it for that.
So rather than just absorbing these terrible moments, as artists, if you can do anything about it, including telling the story, you're one step forward. The worst thing to do is to do nothing and to see what's going on. Honestly, this was my call to action as far as like, I can't stand this war. I don't like any war. And when I was a kid, I grew up during the Cold War. And it was a horrible time, you guys, because we had neighbors building fallout shelters. Now, a fallout shelter would only hold that one family, nobody else. In fact, you were, I believe, part of the civil defense instructions were to fend off, keep your shelter from being invaded. I grew up with that. The whole USSR, America Cold War was going on full steam, and then we had Vietnam, and I participated in those demonstrations. I didn't really use my camera as a tool, though. I did a little bit. I did photograph some of those demonstrations, which I have only in negative form, and I do need to pull them out and scan them. So it's not true that I don't have photographs of it. But if you can do anything about it, you're moving a consciousness, an awareness from maybe numb. I think a lot of people are very numb to the fact that right here and right now on the other side of the world, this is very real. Their country's been invaded. Civilians are being killed. Art schools are being bombed. I mean, you've heard these stories. We have to participate. And we have to be socially conscious. Now, if you don't want to do this, that's fine. This maybe isn't for everybody. But I think all of us have that seed of understanding that we need to do something about situations that are going on around us that are destructive or violent or, causing misery or hardship, whatever, and do something about it. And that's where I'm advising you to go with your photography is, back where we started here, I'll just click back there for a second, is go back to that hashtag and use it. But more than the hashtag, the hashtag is just sort of a symbolic.
We don't have it up yet.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to find it.
Okay.
So before there we go. Okay. So let's go back to this. And now there's a white screen and there's the hashtag. It's a symbolic hashtag. It can cover a lot of stuff besides just peace. Anything in the world of violence, destruction, or the other side. Like we saw the refugee kids. Well, that's not war, but it's the result of, and it's a depiction of something very important and very powerful. But tell your story with your camera, but also add your words from your heart, what this means to you, why you're doing it. Put it on, if you're not going to use social media, that's fine. We will have a blog post you guys could add to that. That's one way you can get your stuff out. You can put it in AYP Club if you're in our Facebook community, which you should be, because that's where we're talking about important issues like this. But if you don't want to join any social media, definitely use our blog post and just, you can put it as a comment and attach your photographs. Amir said, I just shared a post from the Hamas rockets a year ago. I don't know what that is.
Rockets.
Hamas. Okay.
So over in Israel, I have the photo up if you want to show it.
Yeah, let's see it.
And once again, great caption, like what we were just talking with.
Oh wow, there it is.
Amir did a great job describing, like, hey, for my U.S. friends, and like describing this is what the situation would be like for you guys, if this were happening where you are. So really detailed, well thought out, and lots of comments, lots of shares. That's very
fantastic.
Evocative image, but the image means a lot more because of the story that's being told.
Yeah. So I'm just planting the seed. We're going to talk about this more, and this is going to be an ongoing project. It's not all we're going to talk about, but we're going to definitely keep talking about it. In the New York subways, they have a slogan all around the subways. If you see something, say something. You can say it with your camera. If you see something, say something. It's not a bad slogan. What they're talking about, like if you see something weird, like somebody left this package that could be a bomb, say something. Don't just go, oh, they just left their package here. But more than that for us, if you see something, photograph it and say something. If you see something, say something. Okay. Thank you guys for joining me. I'd like to hear your continued thoughts about this. Jared will get the blog post up soon, and we'll put links to the things that we've covered here so that you guys can see them and you can add to it. Post on Instagram and Facebook using the hashtag ProjectCreatePeace. This is our project. What if? Let's do a what if. What if this really caught on? There's millions and hundreds of millions of photographers out there. What if we all put a little effort into this and we could show our solidarity in terms of ending these things and saying, look, we're going to show you what this is. We're not going to hide it, and we're going to tell our stories about it. So thank you guys. Always a pleasure to have you. And I'll see you during the week. By the way, please follow me on Instagram because we're doing a lot of work there. We're posting regularly little stories, shortcuts from our great photographer interviews, and my own photographs. So please, if you haven't already followed me, please do so. And do use this hashtag. Okay? So I'm going to just end by asking you guys to please subscribe and enable the bell. And like, comment, share. Share this with your friends. We're going to trim this video down so you guys have a little shorter version of it that you can use. And it'll be on our blog post as well. And remember to get out and capture your own images of life. Take care, you guys. Stay well, stay safe, stay creative. If you see something, say something.